I want to invite Val Bald up to, tell us another kind of story and lead us in a spiritual practice that's important to her.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to talk about Lectio Divina, and I want you to participate. But first of all, I'll explain. I've been doing Lectio Divina for 10 years at Cadbury Bay United Church, 8 o'clock on a Thursday morning from September to June. It has been the most amazing experience in my life, and I hope that I'll be able to share some of it with you so that perhaps it can become part of your life. Lectio Divina is a heart-centered activity, not a head-centered activity. So I'm going to try and do this without notes and see if I can be led by my heart. So if I make a mistake or miss anything out, it's heart-centered and heart-led. Lectio Divina is an ancient practice, started way in the Hebrew times before people could read and write. They learnt things by heart, they repeated it by rote, they cogitated, they pondered, and it changed some aspects of their life. In the Christian community, it was the Benedictine monks who started it right back in the 6th century, where they took sacred scripture and pondered on it. We today are so lucky because we have more than Christian sacred scripture. We have Buddhist writing, we have Islamic writings, we have Sufi poems, we have poems or readings that we like, we have music that we can listen to, we have paintings that are sacred. It's a whole different field, but I want to just concentrate on what I do at Cadbury Bay, and I'm just going to go through the steps with you. First of all, we meet and we meditate for a little while. We choose a passage. It can be as random as opening the Bible and just someone says, this sounds okay, and we ponder that. Or someone will bring a poem. We read the chosen words 3 times. And while we're reading it, we think of a word or try and find a word that jumps out at us or chooses us, or for some reason we just hang about with that word. Then we read the scripture 3 times again, and while it's being read, we try and think of an image that this word might have for us, or a sensation or an emotion. And then it's read twice again, and we think about what's the invitation for me this week with that word. So are you willing to try that with me this morning? What I'm not going to get you to call out loud, what I'd like you to do in your little tables is we're going to read scripture. While I'm reading it, I want you to try and find a word. That's the first step. I think we're already centered, so I'm not going to do the meditation because you're here, we've had a prayer, and I think you're ready for this. So the first thing I'm going to do is actually read the scriptures that were chosen for this morning. I'm going to read it once, and then I'm going to take 2 verses from it because it's too long, and that will be where you choose your word from. So this is from Luke chapter 4, verses 16 to 20. When he came to, and actually, if you could follow along while I'm reading, it will help you to choose the word. When he came to Nazareth, where he had been brought up, he went to the synagogue on the Sabbath day, as was his custom. He stood up to read, and the scroll of the prophet Isaiah was given to him. He unrolled the scroll and found the place where it was written, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to bring good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim release to the captives and recovery of sight to the blind, to let the oppressed go free, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor." And he rolled up the scroll, gave it back to the attendant, and sat down. The eyes of all in the synagogue were fixed on him. Then he began to say to them, "Today the scripture has been fulfilled in your hearing." Now, I read this at home this morning, and the word that jumped out at me was release. I never like the word that jumps out. I don't know why, but that was the word that jumped out. And then I had to think of a sensation or an image. And the image I had for myself was there was a person in uniform standing in front of a locked gate. This person was armed, and then I looked closer, and this person was me. So then I read it again to myself twice, and I thought, well, what's the invitation for me with this word released? And I'm a security guard, preventing someone from going in or people from coming out. And the invitation I came up with was, perhaps there's something I'm keeping trapped inside me that I don't want to escape. So I have to spend my invitation this week is to try and find out, what is that? What am I frightened of? What am I scared of doing? Because if I can get rid of that fear and that anxiety, I can be a much better person to other people. Now that's a bit deep. Sometimes we have very frivolous moments and lots of laughs in our Lectio, so don't take it too seriously. So what I'm going to read for you, in fact, I'll read it once, then you read it to me, read it together, and I'll read it a third time. And I've just chosen what you're going to hear a lot this morning. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to bring good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim release to the captives and recovery of sight to the blind, and let the oppressed go free, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor. So let's read it together and try and find that word. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to bring good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim release to the captives and recovery of sight to the blind, to let the oppressed go free, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to bring good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim release to the captives and recovery of sight to the blind, to let the oppressed go free, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor. So I'll give you a couple of minutes, just within, if you're in a table on your own, try and join someone else. And just share, if you find a word, just share it with the people at your table. If you can't find a word, just pass. Be the first person to jump in. There's no order to this. So go ahead, try and find a word.
Can it be a phrase?
It can be a phrase as well. Yeah. It can be a phrase as well. Okay, everybody, okay. We're going to stop now. On to the next stage. All right, everyone, we have to stop. Okay? Otherwise, you'll be here till 3 this afternoon. All right. So the next phase, hello? This is actually a quiet contemplative activity. So the next stage is to try and create an image, have a sensation, an emotion, it might be something from your past. Just silently ponder, ruminate, cogitate. Try and find a meaning within that word that you've chosen, that's chosen you. If you haven't found a word, just pass and just sit quietly, reread the passage. I'm going to read it 3 times more. I'll read it once, you read it the second time, and I'll read it the third time. And while I'm reading, allow your heart to find some meaning in the word you've chosen. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to bring good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim release to the captives and recovery of sight to the blind, to let the oppressed go free, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor. Together, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to bring good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim release to the captives and recovery of the sight to the blind, to let the oppressed go free, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to bring good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim release to the captives and recovery of sight to the blind, to let the oppressed go free, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor. So just sit quietly for a couple of minutes and explore. Normally you would have a lot longer to do this, but this is just an experiment and just to give you an idea of the process. I'm going to leave you at this stage. There is a further stage which is called invitation, and I just want to explain that when you express what your invitation is within the Lectio group, you are not only reading, but you're also listening. And the 6th stage, and these are my stages, is that you pray for the person on your right. And when you pray for the person on your right, you've heard their word, you've listened to their emotion or their image, and you've listened to their invitation, and you say a prayer for them. So later on, I will say a prayer for you, but I just want you to know that the prayer I did for myself, pretending that Cheryl was praying this for me, when I chose my word release, and I'm a guard, my prayer and my invitation for me was that I'm able to explore the word from my heart to be open and not to be afraid. Thank you. Speak to you later.